This podcast contains spoilers, so listen at your own risk or call back after you've watched the movie.
You know who you call. Leave a message. Maybe they'll call you back. Then again, maybe they won't.
We're having ourselves quite a little game of phone tag here.
Ring. I usually get this guy's answering machine.
I'll call you right back.
If you're there, please pick up the phone. I really want to talk to you.
I check my fucking messages every day when I come home from work. My answering machine, zero. I got a blinking light.
All I have to do is pick up this phone right here, inform the cinema, and your plan's kaput.
No, I ain't got no phone. I had to pull, because people calling all the time, and who needs the aggravation, right? Interruptions.
Hey, man. Just leaving the house now on a cold Monday morning. Got a bit of pre-work gallivanting to do. Got an electrician coming over. I'm paying in cash, so I got to head out to an ATM machine. One of those like rare instances where you need cash. I thought I'd send you a quick voice note about this movie I finished last night. I watched it over the past 2 days, or two. Well, you know what? Actually, I think I watched it one night and then I skipped night and I watched it another night. So not the purest viewing experience I've ever had of a movie, but yeah, it's kind of that kind of casual, trashy movie that I wasn't overly concerned about, giving it a full, proper cinema experience. So it's a movie called Dead Money, which I know you've seen now as well. I heard about it on a podcast a little while ago, perhaps a week or two ago. And it's a podcast that comes with dubious recommendations, left, right, and center. I find this with a lot of people, they have this habit of, if they like a movie, they really oversell it. They say it's amazing because they're excited about the movie and they want people to watch it at all costs. And I don't know, that's something I can't really connect with. It's certainly not the way you or I operate. But, ideally you sort of, you become accustomed to a given film personality, critic, or whatever it might be, and you translate their language or their enthusiasm into something more measured in your head. But still, I think I came away with higher expectations than I should have done. The magic words that they uttered were that the movie Rounders by John Dahl came out whenever, early 2000s, I guess, and sort of cemented itself as like a cult classic poker movie, and that this is the movie now that could take its place. This could be the new Rounders in terms of this movie that's just a really solid, dependable movie that becomes very iconic and beloved within the poker scene. So I was like, well, I'm in the poker scene. I like playing poker. I love Rounders. I love Rounders because I love poker, and also because it's a nice little John Dahl neo-noir. So yeah, sign me up. Now, I haven't seen Rounders since I was a teenager, so whether Rounders holds up as well as my fond memories of it, I'm not sure. Got a feeling you might have actually watched it last year, so let me know if it went up or down in your esteem, if you did. But anyway, I thought, you know what? In terms of trashy movies, like these kind of, Liam Neeson movies or just direct-to-video type stuff, a poker crime thriller is somewhere where I feel like that scene really comes into its own. It's not like it's trying to pretend to be a blockbusters. It's not like a low budget version of Transformers or something like that. It's kind of a type of movie that's really generic, is medium budget at best, and it's kind of, seems like an appropriate place for this type of film to work. So yeah, I was quite excited for it. Not that I thought it was going to be like, a Stanley Kubrick movie or something, but I just thought it was going to be good, solid entertainment. And it wasn't bad. I mean, I I don't have any major problems with it, but also I'll have forgotten this movie in about 2 days' time, and you may have already forgotten it now because I put you onto it sight unseen, just like this might be a movie worth watching that I've heard about in a podcast, and then you immediately watched it. You were chomping at the bit. Be interesting to see like kind of what factors went into that zealousness to try and, you know, pounce on it as quickly as possible. So now I've watched it and I'm talking to you now like maybe a week after you've seen it, maybe 5-6 days. So I'm not sure how much you remember. It's a very slight movie. It's a very forgettable, disposable piece of entertainment, but not without its merits. So I thought it was worth having a little conversation about, both because I think, you know, this movie itself has some not interesting, but it has some things that, you know, are quite specific to our tastes and things we talk about a lot in terms of types of films, but also just to have a broader conversation about trash movies, schlock, as we call it. So this is Emile Hirsch, who was cancelled from like mainstream movies about 10-15 years ago, and at that point was showing a lot of potential as like the next guy, or like, you know, he could have been in the wave after Tom Cruise's and stuff like that. He could have been in there with Jake Gyllenhaal as like one of the sort of bigger names of that generation. It seemed, you know, early signs. Let's not forget that all of these people, like Gyllenhaal or Cruise, they have like younger, more naive performances. So I'm not saying he was the finished article, but he was, he looked like he could have had potential to be that, you know, like Ryan Gosling is now and stuff. And then he got cancelled and didn't quit acting, just continued to act in schlock, where he went from being like a small to medium star in sort of mainstream high profile movies to being a big A-list star in schlock, which is a, you know, a common move that we've seen actors do millions of times before. Just pop into Aldi now. Oreo cereal, interesting. Intriguing. Okay, I'm going to leave that now. So, yeah, I haven't seen the body of work that he's amassed since he made that change, but I've been aware of him out there doing his thing. And this one caught my attention, and it's nice to check in with him now. It's nice to see, like, obviously I've seen, for going back to like things like Into the Wild, I've seen those movies, so it's nice to check in with him now and just see whether he's still got it. Picking up a few groceries here. And what I'd say is, I don't think he's become some sort of like brilliant actor. I don't know how he could have in the types of film that he's working in. Incredibly unchallenging material. But he also hasn't devolved into like sort of phone it in, embarrassing level acting. He's you can still see the star power, that charisma, that X factor. That's like, you might not have cultivated the ability to act well yet, but you've got the X factor in terms of like, you're watchable, you're engaging, kind of like what DiCaprio had before he became a really good actor. He had that, like, he had the X factor, and that's like a great jump off point. So he's absolutely still got that. I don't think that he is a particularly good actor beyond that, but that's nice to see. He plays, in fact, this film is called Degenerate in many places. I was introduced to it as Dead Money, and the copy I have says Dead Money in the credits, so I'm calling it Dead Money, but if you look it up online, it seems to be more often called Degenerate. So he plays, I suppose, a degenerate gambler, although you don't really see him. There's not that much of an arc in terms of like him being on the outs. Like at the beginning of the movie, he says he's broke, but doesn't seem to be much of a stress factor. There didn't seem to be much implications of that. He's not like, is he living with this girlfriend? Does he have a place? Has he been kicked out of his place? They don't really go into that. This is not the hardships of being addicted to gambling movie. It's more of a concentrated within 48 hours little thriller where winning and losing it's not like most gambling movies where winning and losing has like massive dramatic implications to your life in general. This is more like at the end of the movie, it has implications on a sort of thriller plot crime level, but for the most part, it's just sort of like, hey, I'm a gambler, money go up, money go down kind of thing. That don't ask any questions. Let's not explain that in any more detail. So hang on, I'm just going to end this voice message now because I'm trying to pick up some burger buns. I'm struggling to juggle everything together. So let me add to this in a second. Okay, that's Aldi down onto Testo and the ATM machine. So yeah, the movie starts off in a poker room. I watched this room without subtitles. I don't know about you, but my wife's Spanish, so she's got great English, but we still watch stuff in with subtitles because of regional accents. And years of doing that has made it difficult for me to understand what people are saying without subtitles. So this movie, if you're watching it quiet at night because people are asleep and they're speaking in jargon, which I love, and they all have different accents because they're trying to make them all seem like colorful characters. There is there's a margin of stuff that I'm just not getting, and I don't mind that because I feel like the jargon isn't supposed to be inclusive anyway. It's supposed to be like, these guys are part. It's like when you're watching like a medical scene and they go like, I need this stat and da 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 da, and it's like you're not supposed to understand what they're saying. You're just supposed to feel like they have an expertise they're very embedded in that scene. So it starts with a poker scene of just like, I can't remember if he's winning or losing. It's just like a regular night playing poker, and then title sequence. And I guess he's talking philosophically about poker at that point, which he does a bit, and I don't mind that. It's very cheesy, but like I don't mind that person. And then there's it kind of goes pretty swiftly to the inciting incident, the poker night where two guys rob everyone, and that kind of kicks off the events of the movie. So at the beginning of the movie, you've got like two poker scenes in quick succession that are like pretty involved and are like quite not dynamic. And that makes that, combined with the podcast telling me that it was like the new Rounders, made me think that this is a poker movie that's going to have lots of poker, which I love. I love poker in real life and I love poker in movies. And so ultimately I was quite disappointed that there's almost no poker in the film. Well, almost no is an exaggeration, but like compared to my expectations, there aren't many poker scenes. The movie starts off poker heavy. The movie has a poker scene more or less at the end or almost at the end of the movie. And then I think in the middle, he sits down and plays a little bit of poker at one point somewhere, but mostly it's a crime thriller. And I don't think that's weird the way they structured it by any means. It's more just like I had specific expectations that were not met in terms of the quantity of poker. So that's just on me rather than on the movie. Poker is very photogenic. It always looks good, always plays well, I think, in movies. I'm looking at some onion badgies now. So yeah, I'm always a fan of that. But at the same time, this movie doesn't necessarily do anything groundbreaking with it. I think if you're making a movie that is like just a poker movie, there's always you could, if you're doing it well, you could make those scenes like really sing. And I think it sort of does all right. I like the cast of characters. We got the guy from the Twilight movies who's playing like the sort of wild card cop. I thought he was fun. Thought he was good. And we have, just, a little sort of group of friends, acquaintances, codependent addicts, whatever. I thought that was nice. I thought that was well done. And then we got this love sort of thing going on with your man, Emile Hirsch, and his girlfriend. The girlfriend also is like a bartender in these private events, these private poker nights, which is a little bit like, all right, okay, how did she get involved in this? She just seems to be, she's a student. It's kind of not really go into much detail or any detail on like maybe one line of dialogue, like, I don't want to see you get addicted to poker like my father or something like that, where she's got some reason to be tethered to this world. But, the movie is very slight. As I said, there's not really much that it's trying to do. We've got a few recognizable faces here and there. I forget the name of the guy that's in all the Rian Johnson movies. He is an opponent in an early scene, and they have like a punch out kind of debt, which is fun. So yeah, there's early stuff going on in the movie that set the scene fairly well, but I don't know, I just never really sunk my teeth in and got like super engaged with the film throughout, which was a shame. And as I was watching, I was kind of thinking like, well, why watch this film? Like, what is the value in watching this film? Not to say that I watched all this with new, like, analytical way, how much is this benefiting me type ROI calculation. I'm not trying to frame it like that, but I just was musing upon it. So I was thinking, well, it's not that good, and it's not like, it's not meeting my expectations. It's obviously got many flaws, but I've got even more stuff that I'm juggling here now. But at the same time, like, it is fairly entertaining. What I thought is like, this is basically TV, and this is kind of what people get from TV. I don't like TV, but it's that kind of like zero efforts. It'll hold your attention. It's not going to screw you over in terms of like massively deviating from what that type of story does. It's just like real basic, we're going to give you what this type of thing is supposed to give you, keep you comfortable. And yeah, I think the film does that pretty effectively. So let me end this now, actually, and just paying, and it's getting real complicated. Okay, Aldi done, Tesco done, ATM done, nose blown, ready for the trip home. Yeah, so these kind of movies, I think it's easy to watch, easy as hell, relatively short. Like, it's just so many of the mistakes that you see in, like, let's say like a Denis Villeneuve movie, or anything that's at the absolute upper echelons of critical acclaim, commercial success. Like, you start to see this just overboard indulgence creep in terms of like runtime and creative gambits and stuff like that. And of course, when those things pay off, you get, one of a kind movies, brilliant films. And like, if we take someone like Chris Nolan, Michael Bay, Denis Villeneuve, Luca Guadagnino, these people have made like some films that I absolutely adore, and they couldn't have done so without like betting on themselves and the studio betting on them and stuff like that. But when it doesn't work, when things they try don't work, it can be pretty exhausting, because you're saddled with a 2 hours and 45-minute film with have massive pacing issues, with like critical mistakes here and there that are just, making it a bit of a slog. Whereas a film like this, which is, again, it's like TV, it's trying nothing. It's only doing things that they're like as confident as they can be, or just like safe. Not going to alienate anyone, it's going to keep investors happy and stuff like that. And if you pair that with like a writer and a director who are like reasonably confident and like a cast that are like half decent, you can actually end up with like something that's just very easy to watch, very dependable. You see this in TV a lot. Like if you look at like all the most acclaimed TV shows of the last kind of this modern TV renaissance, the last 20 years, whatever it's been, like none of them are that good in terms of like compared to movies, in my opinion. Maybe one or two, maybe Mad Men, Better Call Saul, but like very few. Most of them are like pretty bad in terms of like overall time investment for like what you're getting out of it. But they're all very competent. Hey, incredibly competent, like very they don't make mistakes that much in terms of something that just completely screws it up, because it's a business, it's a product. It's kind of like when you buy a new chocolate bar or you buy a new smartphone or something like that. They haven't very rarely will they just completely screw up the job that they're trying to do. And so yeah, this type of movie is it's easy to watch. It holds your attention, and what you're looking for and what I look for in TV is like the odd performance here, the odd plot beat there that's like, oh, that was pretty cool. That was pretty novel, and it has that. So we're definitely not feeling like this is John Dowell type thing where it's so incredible that he's actually elevated genre trash to the point of like just being an essential movie. I will say that Dead Money held my attention and was fine. The bad guy, the guy whose nose is broken, and the fact that his nose gets hit multiple times is just like classic example of like a trope that I hate, but that you, of course, is going to be in this movie, because this movie, the sensibilities of this movie find that kind of thing hilarious, and that's just, that is what it is. And so we're like genre conventional, but that guy, I can't remember what he's called. I recognized him. I looked him up online afterwards, and I was like, oh yeah, I recognize that guy. I've seen that guy here and there, but I have no idea what I've seen him in. But, and that is very much the nature of these kind of casts. It's just like the professional poker that's exposed as a cheat at the end. I recognize him. I've seen him here and there, but I don't know who he is. And then you've got, one or two people that like, I'm like, oh, I actually do know who that is. And then you got a whole bunch of people who are like, I don't recognize them, but if I look them up on IMDb, I see that, yeah, all right, I've heard of that. So it's just, they're getting that kind of mid-level cast, as opposed to, there's a world of movies below this where you haven't heard of or recognized any person involved. And when you look at the credits of the people involved, you've never heard of any of that either. So actually, that was an interesting thing. As I was watching, I was like, is this the very top of schlock? Or is this the very bottom of like mid-level movies? Because it's kind of, it's definitely, there's definitely polish here. There's like, just a bit of a sheen that you wouldn't associate with direct-to-video or direct-to-streaming, I suppose it is now, type movies necessarily. But yeah, it's not, I'm not trying to say that there are like official delineations, but it was just one thing that's kind of like going back and forth in my head. Yeah, anyway, not sure how much there is to say about the film. I found Jackie Earl Healy, or whatever he's called, guy from Watchmen, found him to be quite annoying. Again, we've seen that character a million times. They just hire him to do some small crime, but he's actually turns out to be a bit of a psycho and can't be trusted, things escalate. But most of the characters I liked, most of the cast I liked. And yeah, I don't know. It's nice to see Emile again. And he was all right. And could have done with more poker. I could have done with more, like, they fill it with jargon, but they don't really dissect the hands too much. So there could be more there. But the end setup, when we finally get down to it, of like, he's got all the money back, the 200 grand or whatever, but now the baddie's saying, if you don't take that up to the level of 500,000, then I'll kill your girlfriend, or whatever. Like that finally we've got some stakes in play. And yeah, I don't know, all right little flick, but not one that I'll remember in like 48 hours. So if you got something to say about it, just let me know, Sue.
Hey man, out and about today? Just getting back to you about dead money. So, first of all, you asked me what had me open or chomping at the bit to watch this movie after you recommended it. Firstly, I like schlock. Secondly, I find schlock very easy to watch, especially if it's around the 90-minute mark, which this movie is. So, it's always something that is more easy for me to put on than something like a 3.5-hour masterpiece by my favorite director, or one of my favorite directors, that might be requiring specific conditions. I really have to pick my moment for these. But with this type of movie, I can put it on and it's almost going to be impossible to wreck anything like this. And that's the good thing about movies like this. You mentioned that you heard it on a podcast, and they said it was this generation's Rounders, which is quite a funny claim, quite an insane claim actually. I didn't get to the end of Rounders when I continued on my John Dahl-a-thon. I went to that one with the, I can't remember what it's called now, the truck killer one. Can't remember the name, but I got as far as that. I have very fond memories of Rounders. I remember the plot pretty well. And I too, which is one of the reasons why I watched this movie, I too really like poker movies. Now, I'll add a massive caveat. I do not understand how to play poker. I do not really understand how it works. However, movies are very good showing the psychology of what's exciting about that game, both to non-players and to players, and it works in a movie sense so well. Because what do we talk about when we talk about movies? Often stakes, and the poker game has stakes, both figuratively and literally speaking, with the amount of cash that they have chipped next to them. I have played poker once in my life. I woke up with my pockets filled with coins. Thought I did well. As it turns out, I bluffed a massive hand, lost all my money, and then started complaining, wildly drunk, I wouldn't be able to pay my rent. So everyone started giving me all the coins of the game of poker and put it in my pocket. So you can imagine, based on the amount of 2p's and 5p's and 10p's that were in my pockets, how much of a high stakes game I was playing on that fateful day. So it's funny that this podcast that you're talking about mentions that it's this generation's Rounder. I think we already had this generation's Rounder. Win It All is a worthy successor, and Mississippi Grind is very good. two movies that deal with poker and stakes and that type of degenerate that can't stop, and that's almost like a winner and a loser. You also mentioned that Dead Money. What is a reason someone should watch this? I think for if you're a fan of Emile Hirsch, you'll get a good dose of Emile Hirsch in this movie. He does well. We often think when we were trying to pinpoint where his career was and where his career would be a few weeks ago, we're trying to compare him. Would he be like a Tom Cruise? Would he be like a Jake Gyllenhaal? Where would he be? Well, I feel like he would be kind of like DiCaprio, and in this movie he was giving me DiCaprio vibes big time. And I think you mentioned it in terms of that untapped energy and charisma and performance. He's definitely able to hold a scene and carry a scene and add a type of tenseness and movie starness to a scene that elevates beyond the material, which he doesn't in Dead Money quite well. It's not an amazing, but it does show what he has to offer and had to offer as a movie star. I found that one of the only real reasons to watch this. And you're right, there's not too much poker in this game, in this movie. Thought the opening scenes were quite decently done. And then I thought the obvious way for this movie to go would be that he'd have to take this steak that was stolen and go to these different tables and try and make this money, which we don't really get. I was also very confused by the robbery in this movie, where the guy who keeps on getting his nose repeatedly broke seems to be the one staking this robbery. I'm sorry, seems to be the one staking this game. They keep on asking him for money, and he's got a big bag full of money, and he's staking all these people in this game, so it seems. And then a robbery happens, and the guy who's staking the game is getting robbed, and it's quite strange because we see Emile Hirsch keep on asking him for money. So I presume he's staking the game based on the buy-in from the chips. And Emile Hirsch makes the money, then he loses the money, which is quite great in early on with that scene where he says he can't take a punch and he gets knocked out. I like that type of shithousery. And then the other guy wins the money off him. And then I think Emile Hirsch wins a lot of it back by the end of it. But correct me if I'm wrong, but all of that money seems to have been staked by a buy-in based on the guy who broke his fucking nose anyway. So, strange logic and strange how it was shown. Good to see another Culkin. We get that family has enjoyed some goodwill because of Home Alone. So Kieran Culkin's in this very briefly. And I did like the early setup of this type of thing where they have to go back to get a laptop for his girlfriend. And he sees people talking, and then he realizes that, oh, the guy who staked the game is in on the robbery, and then he has to try and take the bag and get away, and they're trying to search who it is briefly. I thought that was probably the high point of the movie. And after that, it just doesn't make use of the type of schlock that I could get to. I thought the girlfriend actress is pretty bad. I thought trying to convey stuff that we, the audience, have to fill in was pretty bad, because I don't think it's ever explained. They're trying to find the girlfriend's car, but at the same time, it's almost like surely they would make the jump that it would be Emile Hirsch that would have took that money. It seems to take him a while to get there. And then they seem to have filled in that gap without conveying to us on screen that they got to that moment. It's a bit strange, a bit weak in terms of the scene by scene plays that you'd normally expect in this movie. I think the high watermark of this type of specific movie like Dead Money is the last stop in Humor County, which is one of the first movies we talked about. I know you didn't like it very much, but that's the type of thing that I wanted Dead Money to be pushed towards, like a bit more over the top, a bit twisty, turny, even if it doesn't make sense, a bit all over the place. If they're going to do that, if they're going to hint at that, and they're going to give us tatters of a movie that could be, you kind of need to push it and give us something. And unfortunately, this movie is very devoid of a lot. And then when we do get to this big poker game at the end, I do like the guy who's the professional poker player, who almost hates his life and hates the game, and then it turns out he's cheating at the game. And then we got that guy that used to be in Heroes called the Haitian, I think. He's hosting the game, and there's potential for a bit of tenseness there that never really materializes. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we kind of get to crescendo where the Haitian guy is trying to find out if Emile Hirsch is cheating at the game, and then the two robbers are in a situation where it's the kind of Mexican standoff. And again, you can do something here. And then the movie kind of ends where the Haitian says, all right, I'm going to have to check this to see if that's true, and I'll come back for you. And I was thinking, okay, when he comes back, oh, I wonder is the other guy going to deny it? No, we never see him again. He just fucks off. And then the policeman, which is a very typical running gag of these type of things, comes back from the dead for a brief moment, forces the two robbers to shoot each other dead, and then everything's kind of worked out, and there wasn't even any room for a payoff. There wasn't even any room for a bit of smartness. There wasn't really any room for anything. Now, I will say that jump scare made me fucking actually jump, because I didn't expect it. And it kind of came out of nowhere. So in terms of stirring any kind of emotion in a movie, I guess in a way it did. So yeah, I wasn't really impressed by this movie. There's not much to say about it, as you said, although you've managed to say quite a bit or spend quite a bit of time talking about it. And yeah, I do agree. I guess if you want a TV experience of no stakes and just very easy to watch, you could say that. But I feel like with TV, the point that's more rewarding about this 1 hour of no effort is that at least you know the characters. So in this, you would have to get to know the characters from scratch, which would be a bit more effort than TV. So I would slightly disagree with you there. But I know there's a lot of people who, at least from our age group, like Emile Hirsch. And if you did want to take a movie to see what he's up to, that I wouldn't say it would disappoint you, but I would just say it's very easy to watch. If you're there for that experience, it's going to be a very easy to watch movie, and it's going to fly by, really, because it's very effortless and short. But leave your expectations at the door.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's the type of movie where, like, you see a poster or something of it or some screenshot, right? And you go, oh yeah, that movie. I think I watched that movie. Did I watch that movie? It's like that kind of, like, doesn't leave a trace of residue in your brain, but you can watch it, you can watch it. It's there, it's available, it's easy to watch. It's fine, it's inoffensive. Someone could walk into the room at any time and was like, do you want to go do something else? You'd be like, yeah, sure. All right, turn that off. it's just, it's nothing. It's a bit of nothing, but it's not annoying really. You mentioned Win It All and Mississippi Grind. Like, yes, I agree. Much, much better movies. Is Mississippi Grind poker or blackjack? I can't remember, but yeah, very good movies. Those. This is more in the Molly's Game territory of like, we gave you poker and you didn't manage to make it that exciting. I think the comparison to Last Stop in Yuma County, what I'd say is that Last Stop is a stylized movie. It's going for a little bit that Coen Brothers type of energy, whereas this feels pretty straight faced. Of course, it's got some like camera moves that are like straight out of the 2000s, like trying to make it seem cool, but you know, it is not stylized. It's not supposed to be quirky. I don't know, different world or different specific tone that they're trying to strike. It's just schlock. So yeah, it's but if schlock is what you want, it works. Yeah, I agree with you said something. Haven't really thought about it that much, but you mentioned a few examples there of like how they sort of tee something up and then it never comes to anything. So like they create a possible movie they could have done where, well, it's dead money. Let me take this 200 grand. I'm going to go bet it, kind of like Win It All. I'm going to go bet it. I'm going to expand on it. And then I could put this money back. And it's like it never happened kind of thing. That's something that could have been done. The Mexican standoff at the end, that could have been something that happens. But the guy just walks in, then leaves. That scene could have happened back at the poker game. You know, that would have been more explosive. It had come out, that conflict, while the cheater guy was there. It's like they get you, like the cop comes back. Oh, this is new. This is a new bit of, this is a new dynamic. Now the cop's here as well. How are they gonna, oh, he just gets shot in the face straight away. And that's a good moment. It's one of the best moments in the movie because like, what are you gonna shoot a cop? And he does get shot. And that's very surprising. It's one of the few surprises that the film has up its sleeve. But it's still just an example of like, nothing comes to as much as it could do. And if you're going John Dahl, you're going, ooh, let's line up all our ducks in a row, and then, ooh, what if this collides with this, but then this person doesn't know this, and this causes this. Like, that's why you come to these kind of crime dramas. It doesn't have any tricks up its sleeve, to use a card metaphor. So yeah, was lacking for me for sure. And I can see it. I think like when I go on Amazon Prime, I always like I think of Amazon Prime as being like the like DVD rental place or something, where it's like these films don't exist in public conversation. They don't exist on billboards. They don't exist in like our shared cultural consciousness. They only exist when you get down to the bargain bin DVD level. And then you're like, oh man, there's a lot of fucking movies made. There must be like 100 movies made every day. And they're like called things like, you know, Dark Justice 8. I think it's Dark Justice. No, Dark Fate is one of the Terminators. You know, they're just called like stupid titles. And they're the poster, or one of the many posters, because if everywhere you view that movie, it'll be called a different thing and with completely different art and presentation. But the intention of what you're seeing is just like, let's surface everything of value and everything of interest about this movie right up to the top. Put it in the name of the movie, put it in the poster of the movie. We try different things, see what sticks, different markets, different streaming services, call it different things, put different people in the posters. As soon as people sit down and start watching the movie, we want to have in 5 minutes sort of giving them the whole movie so they know that they're just like, I'll watch all of this. Now, that market is huge. It's like, yes, it might take 1,000 of those movies to make up the kind of revenue of one of the significant movies that we're aware of, but that's fine. And the budget allows for that, for those numbers. So that kind of market that, you know, I don't really spend much time watching those movies, but from my understanding of it, something like Dead Money just would perfectly play. I think ironically, the guy on the podcast who convinced me to watch it, he's kind of right in the sense of like, maybe we shouldn't be watching it, but this movie is not really made for us. The people who watch these movies, this movie kind of works perfectly. I'm not that comes across as kind of elitist the way I'm saying it. I'm not trying to say there's some sort of like intellectual void between like me and people who would watch this film. I don't mean that at all. I just mean if you're entertained by these movies, it's not in any way a measure of like your intellect or anything like that. It's just if this is the type of movie you're after and you're on Amazon Prime and you're watching all these kind of things, this movie is kind of perfect for that. Just in the same way as like what every time a new Transformers movie comes out, it's fucking amazing for all the people who are going to watch it, and it's irrelevant to the people who are like me, who are like have absolutely no interest in watching those movies. So what a film really should be doing is like meeting its own goals rather than meeting the goals of people completely outside of that scene. And what you and I will do is we'll watch films that are like, they're crime genre pulpy films, but there's something more interesting about them. There's something different. They're heightened. They're more thought through, whatever it might be. There's like there's ways in which they can get into a space that suddenly they pique the interest of you and I. But outside of that, there were thousands of films that are not making those moves and not attempting them, really, I would say. And they work as a model. People watch them, people love them. And I think a lot of people will watch and love this film, even though you and I will never hear of it again. And had I not listened to that one episode of that podcast, I would not ever know that this film exists. But it's interesting to have a little look into that world every now and again. So yeah, I guess that's Dead Money, or Degenerate, or whatever you want to call it. Probably be called something different if it ever crossed my path again. I won't be seeking out future work from these filmmakers deliberately, but at the same time, you know, you could, I don't know if the director is like, had a long and storied career, or if this is like a debut, I've no idea, but I can definitely see a world where the people who made this film kind of raise their bar up a few clicks and they make something that's still pulpy trash, but it's just like that tier up from this, where I actually do find myself being a fan of it. But for now, I will bid them adieu and yeah, seek out the next hit.
Your mailbox is full. Please delete new or stored messages which you no longer need so that new messages may be received.